I'm sure we've missed acknowledging some people as they've entered the room, but good to see you all. Just really good to see you. Laura, when you are ready, I will stop the screen sharing and we can all, at least I can see everybody's faces.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and start. Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Baczynski, co-chair of Greenwood Women Cares Advisory Board, and I am so pleased to welcome you to our quarterly meeting. Tonight, we'll spend an hour together reconnecting and recommitting to our goals of learning, giving, and growing. Before we begin our program, I'm going to take a few moments to make sure you're all set up and comfortable on Zoom with us. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, if you have not done this already, is to mute your microphone, please. We're going to have a lot of people with us this evening, and even just a little bit of background noise can be distracting. So you can mute yourself by going to either the bottom of your screen, and there's a little mute button, or at the top of your individual picture, you can go up there and mute yourself there. You may choose to be on here so we can all see you and appear on everyone's screen by having your video option activated, or you may listen and watch without it if you're still in your pajamas. However, we would love to see all of your faces, to see your smiling faces. And if you're having any trouble at some point with your internet connection, if you turn off that video portion or part, you'll have better reception. At the upper right of your screen, you're going to have options for viewing. You can see an array of other people that are all here, but you may want to click on the speaker view, which would then just focus on the presentation, and I'll be really big on your screen, just me. We'll be sharing videos and PowerPoint slides with you this evening, and if you can't see that, if your view is blocked by your screen of the speaker or of all of us, you can just click and drag us over to the side of the corner so you'll be able to see. Each quarterly meeting, our program focuses on worthy work in Greenwood County. And tonight, we will be hearing from Rosemary Bell about Greater Greenwood United Ministries and their range of critical services in our community. And also from Kim McIntyre and Vicki Jackson, representing Lighthouse for Life, and they will be informing us about human trafficking in South Carolina. We'd also like to extend a special warm welcome to our guests tonight, and we have many. Kathy is here, Kathy Kelly and Barb DuPont, Sharon Mack, Jo Beth Height, Tommy Good, Glenda Horton, Audrey Witherspoon, Caroline Dennis, Rebecca Goodhue, Rachel Strayer, Tamara Augustine, and Amy Clark. So welcome to our guests and any others who may have logged in. We're so glad that you are here with us tonight. Greenwood Women Care is an organization of 114 members strong and still growing, who are committed to learning about the needs and opportunities in our community. Through our annual granting cycle, we are giving collectively to support the good work of local nonprofits, and we are growing together as a community and personally as we engage in the good work together. Consider the power of collective giving when 129 women can move $74,000 into our community in just our second year of granting. We hope many more will be inspired to join us, and you will be welcome. Now, I'm going to turn the evening over to Louise Robinson, the chair of our Programs and Education Committee, and she will introduce our program. Louise?
Thank you. Good evening, GWC and guests. On behalf of the GWC and our Program and Education Committee, we are so glad that you've chosen to spend just a few moments with us together this evening. Our program this evening is entitled The Community in Crisis Response. Our hope is that you will gain a better understanding of some of the programs and that are in place in times of crisis. A crisis is defined as a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. It's also a type of event that is an unstable, dangerous situation that affects an individual, a community, or a whole society. There are not socioeconomic, racial, or other criteria that determines who will or will not experience a crisis. It can happen to any one of us at any time. Since we know this, it's important that we do our best as a community to be knowledgeable of the services and supports out there, as well as we need to prepare. We ask that you please listen attentively as the presenters tonight present this evening's educational program. And now I will turn it over to Mamie Nicholson, who will introduce our first speaker.
Good evening, everyone. I am pleased to introduce our first guest, Rosemary Bell. Rosemary and I have been in this community working together for quite some time, but I will go into her formal introduction that she has provided for me. Rosemary is a graduate of the University of South Carolina in Columbia. She is true to her hometown and her alma mater, and is a diehard Gamecock. She has lived in Greenwood since 1983, has worked as Director of Prevention and Wellness Services and Wellness Works of Self Regional Healthcare for over 30 years. During her time at Self Regional, she worked with local business and industry, churches, schools, and the community. She feels that this wonderful journey prepared her for her present position. She has been Executive Director of Greater Greenwood United Ministry for 7 years. She loves people and enjoys the challenge of leading a nonprofit and assisting those in life and medical crisis in our community. She is married to Darby Bell, has 3 daughters, 4 handsome grandsons, and 2 beautiful granddaughters. Please listen as Rosemary presents to us one of our critical needs agencies and the work that they do in the Greenwood community. Thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you so much, Mamie. And thank you all for the invitation this evening to come and share the work of Greater Greenwood United Ministry. I've got to watch my time because I'm so passionate, I'll be taking up the whole time. And I know we want to hear from our other speaker. I want to just start out with some basic information about GGUM for those that don't know who we are. We're a 26-year-old nonprofit that started in January of 1995. 17 local Christian churches came together to form the ministry because when people are in need, they go straight to the church. And it's very hard for the churches to help everyone, vet questions, vet needs. So they decided that they wanted to have an organization that they could fund to help with people in need. The ministry started with a crisis ministry. Today, we have over 65 partner churches that help us fund the crisis ministry. Crisis ministry assists financially with rent evictions and utility disconnections. We also have an emergency food pantry for our patients and clients. We offer intervention steps for those in crisis that find themselves in chronic crisis, because the ministry wants to be a hand up for people in our community to help them understand the benefit of sustaining themselves and their families, and then they can extend their hand to others. In 1996, we opened up the free medical clinic in January of 1996. And today that clinic is going crazy right now. We are blessed to have funding partners. We have Self Regional as a very large funding partner for the clinic. We also have individuals, business individuals, businesses, and other grants that help fund the clinic. To qualify for the free medical clinic services, anyone in our community can come that is uninsured, has no Medicaid, and has no Medicare. So they really don't have a whole lot of option as far as their primary medical care. So we offer primary medical care visits, just like you and I go to our doctor when we have colds or the flu or blood pressure, diabetes issues, and they handle that. That's exactly what the GWC Free Medical Clinic does for those in our community that need that service. So we offer primary care visits. We also have an in-house pharmacy that provides free medications and medical supplies for our patients. We have diabetic education. Diabetes is a big, big thing for our community and those people that we serve. So diabetic education is here. We have case management. We also offer X-ray through Self Regional. Like I said, they're a great partner, and we appreciate the services that they offer us. We do homeless referrals. We work closely with Pathway House, Faith Home, and Oaks Recovery. We provide all of the medical care for their residents, as well as, like I said, anyone in the community that's uninsured with no Medicaid and no Medicare. So getting through all that, the exciting thing, I know that went really quick because I talked so fast, but we are super excited to add to our list of services a women's health clinic. And we actually have 3 volunteer gynecologists who are going to be working with us starting March 18th. We're going to be offering this women's health clinic once a month right now to get things rolling. So all of our new patients that come in and are females, we're going to pair them up with a gynecologist and have all the basic screenings done, their A1C, blood pressure, height, weight, lipid panel, urinalysis, all that. And then they also get the clinical breast exam, the Pap test, and other women's health issues. And what we're going to do is follow them closely because, as Mamie said, I'm big on the prevention side. So I handle episodic issues, but we're all about trying to get people on the front side of their health issues to take better care of themselves so they have quality and quantity of life. So we're really excited about that new service that's coming. That's kind of in general who we are, what we offer. The exciting part I like to talk about is statistics, give some statistics of what we've actually done. In 2020, I can't sit here and tell you that 2020 was not a crazy year. And gosh, everywhere we looked, it seems like there was hurting, there was pain, there was so much uncertainty. And I don't want to dwell on that, because what I want to dwell on is the amazing work that was done through Greater Greenwood United Ministry in 2020. Our facility never closed, especially our medical clinic, because with a pharmacy offering free medications and medical supplies, there was no way we could close, because then our patients would be in the ER with a lot of issues going on. So we thought we better stay open. Let's practice our CDC and DHEC guidelines, put all of that in place, and then continue our primary care clinic for our patients. The crisis ministry also continued with rent eviction and utility disconnection assistance, although there was 2 months there where we didn't have a lot of that because the governor kind of stopped, the evictions and the utility disconnections for a short period of time. So I want to concentrate, like I said, on the blessing and the services that we offered. The crisis ministry provided over $66,000 in financial assistance for rent evictions and utility disconnections. We distributed over 8,500 pounds of food, and I'm always quick to tell people we're not the food bank. Wendy does a wonderful job with that. This 8,500 pounds of food went to our patients and clients that were assisted through GWC. We referred 53 individuals for job searches and financial coaching, again, to help them with a hand up. We provided 35 individuals with free eyeglasses. We do have a partnership with the Greenwood and Matthews Lions Clubs to interview people, and then they approve them or disapprove them for eyeglasses. So we had 35 come through. The free medical clinic provided 1,547 primary medical care visits This was a 35% increase over prior year in new patients because of folks that unfortunately had lost their jobs. And so we were able to assist them in getting the medical care they needed. We dispensed 4,549 medications, which was a 3% increase over prior year. We provided free dental extractions to 28 patients. We have a partnership with about 3 local dentists. Right now, they are only seeing the G-gum patients because they're still kind of holding off on opening their offices up to just everyone needing dental care, unfortunately. That's a big problem for Greenwood County. We provided 107 flu shots for G-gum patients and residents of Faith Home, Greenwood Pathway House, and Oaks Recovery. We hosted a women's health clinic in August in partnership with MUSC, the University of Clemson University, and SRH Mammography Department. We screened 9 ladies and 1 was sent for a diagnostic mammogram. So we're so thankful that we were able to offer that. And, you know, we're not really sure what happened with that. I think it was precancerous is what I was told by our clinic. So that was 2020. Now we're into 2021. Things are still hairy. Things are still a little crazy, but I wanted to share the statistics for January. So the crisis ministry last month, we provided $14,304 in financial assistance for rent evictions and utility disconnections. We distributed over 2,500 pounds of food so far. We've referred 17 people for job searches. We have provided 9 people with, actually there's 3 more as of today. So 12 people with free eyeglasses. The medical clinic has provided 116 primary medical care visits. That's a value of over $17,000. We've dispensed 415 medications. That's a value of over $41,000. We've provided 8 free dental extractions with a little over $1,700 value. So we've started 2021 with a bang. And, you know, I think our whole goal is just to continue to be obedient to God and not question anything. Where's our fund gonna, is our funding gonna be here? Should we drop assistance levels? We just kind of don't go there because we know that he's gonna provide as long as we continue to be obedient and see the least of these in our community. So the last thing I want to do, I always tell a story. So everybody that knows me knows that I always end with a story. So I want to tell you about a patient that came into the medical clinic. It was about June, I think, May or June of last year. And the lady came in and she was in bedroom shoes. And she came up to the front. She could barely walk. She was having so much pain and trouble with her feet. So we got her in, we interviewed her, got her in to see our medical provider. And the lady's blood sugar was out the roof. She was diabetic and she had no clue that she was diabetic. She just knew she felt bad all the time and she was swelling, and she saw our banners on our building one day and decided that she was going to come in and check it out. So we got her in, got her seen by the provider, got her on her medications, gave her her medical supplies, got her with the diabetic educator, and they taught her how to label read and also how to manage her medications and her medical supplies. And about 4 months later, I heard all this laughter and carrying on down the hall. And I was like, what the world's going on down the hall? So I went out and looked, and this lady was in the hallway dancing with our primary care provider. They were do-si-doing around the corner and just jumping up and down. And I really didn't know who she was until they told me this was the lady that couldn't put her shoes on, had so much swelling, and her sugar was just crazy. So, you know, it was so awesome. And she just comes in now for checkups and getting her medications and medical supplies. And she's praising us for, you know, helping her live her life. She said she can get in the floor with her grandchildren and she can run after her grandchildren. And a funny story is I was at the medical window one day and looked out and saw this woman with the cutest pair of sandals I've ever seen. And I was talking to one of the girls and she said, that's the lady that came in her bedroom shoes, and she could not even get her feet in her regular shoes. So she was just thrilled that, she feels like she can do anything that she wants to do now. And it just, it's just wonderful that, I could spend, like I said, the whole rest of the time talking about testimonies and people, but I always like to share one story and just kind of let folks know the impact that, the medical clinic and the crisis ministry are making in Greenwood. And I'm just happy to be a small part of it. So thank you all very much for the opportunity to come this evening and share this information with you. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Are there any questions? You can either ask them or you can put them in the chat box.
Yes.
Thank you for that information, Rosemary.
Thank you. Thank you again for this opportunity.
And what are the hours, and do you you accept volunteers?
Oh, yes. We take volunteers. Our hours, the crisis ministry is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 9 to 11:30. And the medical clinic is Monday through Thursday. With the addition of the women's clinic, we're pretty much there 4 days with medical clinic.
We're now ready for our speaker number 2. And our introduction will be by Miss Carol. Miss Carol, I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Louise, I'm just going to interrupt you, Carol, for just a minute. If we could just remind people to mute their microphones, please. So if you haven't done that, if you would do that, that way your background noise will not pick up for everyone. That would be great. Thanks.
Okay, Miss Carol.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Yes? I don't hear, okay. Well, it's delighted to have a chance to introduce a new area of concern and interest in the community, and to welcome Vicki Jackson. She is the Director of Survivor Care Program at Lighthouse for Life. Vicki began her working career on behalf of military children and their families. While she was working on her bachelor's degree in social work at the Colorado State University in Pueblo. Vicki is a veteran and a veteran spouse. She received her master's degree from the University in Social Work from the University of South Carolina. And since graduating from USC in 2012, Vicki has worked in a multiple of roles of increasing responsibility for the National Court-Appointed Special Advocates. He's a guardian ad litem association. She's worked with the guardian ad litems in Richland County. And during her tenure there, she has had the privilege of personally advocating on behalf of more than 38 children who have been abused, neglected, and or exploited. Vicki has helped develop the commercial sexual exploitation of children program and has coordinated and run the Richland County Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force. She has been trained as a national facilitator, has developed multiple trainings that have helped bring awareness to the issues of human trafficking throughout the United States. And that's what she's going to share with us, her experiences and those particular concerns. Joining us also is Kim McIntyre to give us an idea of a more local perspective. Kim is a minister in one of our local churches and does some work here in the Greenwood area. So hope you will join me in welcoming both Vicki and Kim to Greenwood Women's Care.
Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you, everybody. And I was trying to see if Kim was on to make sure, because she and I haven't met in person yet. So if you're on, Kim, and you want to pitch in, just chip in, or I can turn it over to you. So just let me know. But thank you, everybody. I so appreciate this opportunity. Thank you, Carol, for that wonderful introduction. I now sit as the Survivor Care Director at Lighthouse for Life. remotely from Virginia, although this week I am currently in South Carolina. We're launching our Speakers Bureau to be training some volunteer speakers. But I live in Chesapeake, Virginia. My husband's still currently in the military band. So anyway, I kind of want to just give you guys a little bit brief awareness of what human trafficking is. Before I do that, I'll tell you a little bit about our organization. So we've been around for a little while. We're a fairly new organization. I believe it's 6 years. We have a residential side called Caris Home. That's our safe house that will hold 3 minor girls. And we are officially open. And we are interviewing survivors. So, but we don't have anybody in our house yet, but when God does lead someone our way, we will. That will house the minor girls. We have caregivers, and we also have a resident or a non-residential side, which is the one that I'm ahead of. That's our survivor care program. We are developing a support group. We provide So we'll have support group services. We also provide one-on-one support. In the last year, we have helped assist 10 survivors. We are also designing a retreat. So yearly, we'll bring back our alumni, those that have completed their support group, to come in and create support services for them. And then we have our public awareness side. What I'm doing now is human trafficking awareness. We do presentations for medical providers. We have a presentation for the survivor perspective. And then we have demand side and a whole bunch of other presentations. But many of you are probably wondering, does human trafficking happen in, is that just something that happens internationally? Does it happen locally? And before I start, there are some topics that we're going to talk about that might be a little harsh. So please take care of yourself. I don't know what your experiences are. So just take care of yourself. If you have any questions, you can ask me afterwards. I'm going to probably interchangeably use a few words. When I talk about victim, I want to clarify that. That means someone who's in the life. And when I talk about survivor, that's someone who's out of the life. And the life is often referred to human trafficking or to prostitution. Another term another thing I like to bring awareness to is trying to do person first language. So instead of it being a prostitute, it's someone who's involved in prostitution. It's defining the person, not their situation. As someone who has autism, it's not an autistic child, it's someone with autism. So oftentimes you'll hear that type of language, but that's kind of a little bit of background. I will send out to you guys a video. It's a short video. It's about 2 minutes and 33 seconds called Can You Spot the Signs? And I'm hoping that after we do this presentation, when you watch that video, that maybe you'll be able to see some of those signs with human trafficking. So I'll send the video. It's something you guys can watch afterwards. But really, what does human trafficking mean? And so I'm going to read the definition. It's kind of long, and then I'll break it down a little bit. So human trafficking is defined as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons of improper means, such as force, fraud, or coercion, for an improper purpose, including forced labor or sexual exploitation. Okay, I know that's a lot of words. What I really want you to hear is force, fraud, or coercion, and for forced labor or sexual exploitation. Now, this is a definition that is for those who are over the age of 18. Law enforcement has to prove force, fraud, or coercion. So oftentimes individuals who are involved in prostitution, it's difficult for law enforcement to prove it, because if the individual says they're choosing that, then law enforcement can't go forward. But we're going to go a little bit about into potentially what exploitation and trafficking looks like. If they're under the age of 18, law enforcement does not have to prove force, fraud, or coercion if the individual is involved in commercial sexual exploitation. But we'll break that down even more. So there's a thing called an AMP model. It's the act, the means, and the purpose. So the acts are inducing, recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining, right? So if they're doing any of those components by force, fraud, or coercion, again, over the age of 18, for the purpose of sexual exploitation, then they can be prosecuted under human trafficking. There are multiple types of human trafficking. For most of what we bring awareness around, because we are working with individuals who have been exploited sexually, we do a lot of training around there. But as labor trafficking is a form of human trafficking, domestic servitude. So I bring a lot of awareness around in the military community, because a lot of military families move around and they hire nannies. And so just being cognizant of, are those nannies free to come and go as they please? Are they being paid appropriately? What do their living quarters look like? And so those are things that could potentially end up being someone who might be a victim. And then you also have forced begging. And so the example that I use with that is, if you've ever gone anywhere and someone kind of started coming over and cleaning your window and you didn't ask them, and they're of course doing it for money, not that you need to approach them, not that you need to say, oh, all of it looks like human trafficking, but potentially there could be someone that is forcing them to work to maintain a certain specific quota. So that's why I like to bring awareness. And in South Carolina, when I was living here in South Carolina, we had the door-to-door salespeople for magazines. And so I often wondered, especially it was like late at night, like it's 7 o'clock or 7:30, I often wondered, like, is there a certain amount of magazines that they have to sell? Are they getting any portions of the proceeds? What does their living experience, living quarters look like? And if it ever opportunity ask any of those questions, certainly, but a lot of times I didn't, because I didn't know if maybe the traffickers down the street, I didn't want to put them at risk. When I moved to Virginia, they now have a law that states that you have to have a permit in order to go door to door. It's $5, and it's a picture ID that they wear around their neck, and they have to fill out an application. It's one way to kind of maybe make it a little harder for exploitation to happen in your neighborhood. It doesn't solve everything, but it's another barrier. So that's something I always encourage people to maybe talk to their neighborhood communities or areas of saying, hey, we see a lot of door-to-door salesmen, but I don't know if we're tracking it. And so maybe they can do a little bit of background investigation on that. So I've used a couple of terms, exploitation versus trafficking. So sexual exploitation, when you're talking around children, it's sexual abuse of a child and a youth through the exchange of sex or sexual acts for anything of value, in exchange for anything of value. So of value could be laying on a couch somewhere. It could be a meal. It could be cash. It could be that someone took a picture of them and they want that picture back. So it's something of value. Exploitation involves two individuals, the exploiter and the exploited. And a lot of times when our kids came into foster care, we never knew who the trafficker was. They didn't refer to them as a trafficker, but they might have gotten picked up because someone was purchasing them. So then when you go into trafficking, that involves the third party. So you have the trafficker, you have the purchaser, and you have the victim. So there's just kind of little clarifications on between those two. What I also want you to realize too is that while not all child abuse is commercial sexual exploitation, all commercial sexual exploitation, we use the acronym CSEC, is child abuse. Federally, it is child abuse. So if you know that someone's being commercially exploited, that is child abuse, and you need to report that to the authorities. And in other words, there is no such thing as a child prostitute. That does not exist. They are not legally allowed to, they're not legally able to consent to commercial sex. So who does this affect, right? Whom does this affect? There's multiple numbers out there, but the real bottom line is it's really difficult to get all the statistics because not all victims self-identify, but it happens globally. And some of the statistics are about 40 million all over the world. It's not just here locally. It's not just something internationally. And it can impact anyone. I say human trafficking preys on vulnerabilities, and every one of us has a vulnerability. If we love something, if we like something, we have a vulnerability that someone could potentially use to exploit us. So there's no specific base or person. However, there's more individuals who are more at risk. So those in the LGBTQ community, youth who've been exposed or have experienced abuse, a majority of individuals who have been sexually trafficked, who have been trafficked through sexual exploitation, have experienced some type of sexual abuse, but that's not necessarily one of the red flags. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about the trafficker's main purpose for human trafficking, right? To them, it's money. The individual is a commodity. So with, if someone's caught driving down the road with drugs in their car, law enforcement catches them, they have evidence. But if an individual is caught driving down the road with an individual in the car, it's easily explained away, right? Oh, that's my niece, or that's my niece's friends. And there's not always going to be some questioning. So it's a little bit different. With drugs, you sell them one time. With an individual, you can sell them over and over again and not have to replenish your supply. So it's kind of bypassing the drug industry because it's becoming very lucrative. But here's what the really traumatizing and painful reality is that if you have a 15-year-old child who is being forced to have sex with 5 buyers a day, 7 nights a week, they have been raped 1,825 times before they're even old enough to drive. And so while the traffickers don't see them as a person, we do. And we see the problems, we see the trauma that it causes. And so that's why we bring awareness to this issue. We talk a little bit about, we can go further into it later if you guys want a more extensive training, but there's lots of influencers that that glorify this lifestyle, right? So there's books out there, and I'm not judging any of you, and I don't want any of you to raise your hand or any of that, but 50 Shades of Grey, which often people have read or watched that movie, women have said, oh, that individual's empowered. But what I want you to understand is that the protagonist in that show or in that book was humiliated. She was battered, she was abused, she was controlled, she was degraded, she was entrapped, she was isolated, she was threatened, she was coerced, she was manipulated, and she was tortured. And I don't see that that's empowerment. And again, I'm not judging anybody if you've read those books, but those are the things that we're looking at, right? I'm gonna just mention the Super Bowl last year, not this year, but last year, the objectification of women. It saddened me that these 2 amazing superstar women were conditioned to believe that society wanted to see them pole dance or wanted to see them wear the very low-cut outfits. But what was even sadder was the young girls that followed suit. They were the ones that were looking up to them, admiring them, and saying, oh, well, if it's okay for them, it's okay for me. And I don't know if some of you have started seeing more and more of these dance routines, the younger they get. If you feel uncomfortable watching that, that's because it's wrong. And I was talking to my husband about it, and he's like, have you ever looked in the audience when they're at like festivals? He's like, have you ever noticed single men, no kids around? And I was like, ooh, no. But it's kind of true, right? That's what they're trying to appeal to. But these are young girls. And so they were conditioning them and kind of grooming them from a young age so that they don't feel so nervous about that. So, just kind of being aware of that and teaching our young girls that they don't have to wear those provocative outfits to be sexy or to be beautiful. So just, I want to be really cognizant of your time in your meeting. So I'm just going to kind of tell you a little bit about how it is locally and then, how it impacts, because we talked a little bit about it. It doesn't just happen internationally. It does happen all over the United States. And the National Human Trafficking Hotline has a really great, it's Polaris Project heat sensor map, and you can see all the calls, and it's pretty much lit up all over the United States. But we also have the issue here in South Carolina. And the AG's report went out in January and reported top 5 counties with the highest rates of human trafficking. Horry County is number 1, Charleston is number 2, Greenville is number 3, Richland is number 4, and Anderson is number 5. But what I want to really say is that, yes, that's a problem, but this is saying that people are making phone calls. That's how we're getting that data. So the human trafficking hotline number, the police officer phone numbers, they're getting out there and people are making phone calls. So next year you may see, if we have more of a push about the information, we may see the numbers go up. It doesn't necessarily mean that the problem's getting bigger. It may mean that we're getting more awareness about it. So more people are reporting it, more people are, helping individuals. Maybe more people are coming forward and saying, you know, hey, I might be experiencing this. Where can I get help? And so, you know, if you, I'm going to tell you a couple of red flags. If you ever work with children, really, if you see a child with a history of truancy, running away, homelessness, and sexual abuse, all of them, those are huge red flags. Any of them, obviously, if they're running away, we're going to find out what they're running towards or running away from. I try to get rid of the term runaway because a lot of times people think that means that they chose to leave, but the reality of it is that they're missing from care. No one knows from them, and so we have to go look for them. These traffickers are counting on people not to look for them, to just be dismissive and be like, oh, they just ran away, they got angry, and it's like, we need to find out, are they running towards something or are they running away from something? If tattoos, oftentimes traffickers will brand their women. And so just asking questions about the tattoos, maybe it's a name, maybe it's a symbol, just, you know, hey, I like your ink. Where did you get it? Did you, you know, who inspired it? Different things like that you can ask about. For kids, if they're carrying multiple cell phones, those are really huge red flags. A lot of times I say, I don't even know if they need one, but definitely they don't need more than that. If they suddenly have expensive things and you know they can't afford it, that's definitely a red flag. Like, where are they getting that? And where are they getting that? Or who's providing those expensive things? There's multiple human trafficking lingo that they use. Some things to be cognizant of. The girls may refer to them as their daddy. They might say in the life. They may not. They may say, you know, my daddy or my uncle or something to that aspect. Wifey is something that they commonly refer to each other. You know, this is my wifey, or you know, the wifey, or something to that aspect. And then I can send you guys a list of more common. You don't often hear them say pimp. A lot of times it's like daddy, or my boyfriend. But it's looking at it like, oh, they're 13 and they have a 27-year-old boyfriend. That doesn't really seem right. You know, you know, and having those conversations. So what are some things that you can do? Constantly let your kids or your grandkids or your nieces and nephews or your neighbors' kids know how much they're loved and valued, because they're going to look for it somewhere else if they're not getting it at home. Remember your kid, remember to check in with your kids. See how they're doing. If they're on the internet, check in with them. See who their friends are. Educate your kids about different types of topics, right? Like body safety, empathy, about tricky people. That's what we call them, tricky people. Because there's no longer stranger danger. It's oftentimes they befriend the individual and make them feel comfortable, and then, you know, will lure them somewhere else, or, you know, anyway, being aware of who they're communicating with. Educating your kids about pornography, doing there's ways to lock your routers so that they don't have access to things like that, and continue to educate yourself. If you do find out that a child discloses, number one, always believe them. We are not law enforcement. We don't have to prove. The important thing is that if a child's brave enough to come forward, they are telling the truth. It is so easy for an adult or someone else to dispute a child, but the reality is it took a lot of courage for them to come forward. So you let them know that they did nothing wrong. You thank them for confiding in you, and you remind them that they're loved, and then you report it immediately. Some things not to do is don't panic, don't overreact. Kind of, we call it like put your Jesus face on and be really straight, you know, because if you react, they're going to take that internally. They're going to think, oh, I did something wrong. And obviously don't criticize or blame them, because it's not their fault. They didn't do anything. They were brave to come forward. And I'll give you a couple of numbers to call. But beforehand, ways that you can address human trafficking is you can educate yourself and others about human trafficking. You can ask us to come back. We have an hour-long presentation that goes in more in depth. You can volunteer with local, national, or international human trafficking organizations. You can donate to the anti-human trafficking organizations. Be a conscious consumer. Be aware of where your products are being made. Some are labeled fair trade. Just a little bit of awareness right now, and this is not blaming There are articles right now, there are pending lawsuits with Nestle and Hershey's because the cocoa industry has been found to have trafficked 8 individuals. One of them was recruited at 11 years old, and they were supposed to have things in place by 2005 that would have prevented that, and they didn't. So now they have a plan by 2025 that they're going to do that. So we can hold their feet to the fire. We can come in, let's try to educate them, but let's prevent this. There's no reason for this to be going on. You can contact your legislators. You're all constituents. You can look at your local laws and and see there's the laws in South Carolina around purchasing are very, 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 very slim, very minimal, like the same price, same fine as littering. And so putting pressure on legislators to maybe up the antics on that. If you see something, there's a human trafficking hotline number. It's 1-888-373-7888. And I'll give that to you again. 1-888-373-7888. I encourage you to put that in your phone. If you suspect anything at all, you can call them. They will patch it to local law enforcement, and they'll get as much detail. And then if you need, obviously, if it's emergency, it's 911, and then any of your local law enforcement you can call as well.
Wow, that was a lot of information and a lot of good information. We thank you for coming, Vicki. And Kim, I don't see you on here, but Kim is our local rep. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Great. Are there any questions? Okay. Well, if not, we'll turn things over to Miss Lisa.
Louise, I actually have a question. This is
Okay.
Katie Davenport. Vicki, I was just curious if you have ever seen situations with the students where maybe they have males who are school age that they try to use to enlist their friends like at school. So like teenage boys, if they ever say, hey, we're going to use you to try to bring the girls in to any of the human trafficking.
We've seen it both. And I did talk a lot about women being victims, but boys and men can be victims as well as recruiting. We've seen it a lot in DJJ. Even it doesn't have to just be the boys, it can be the girls. They're coming in and they're recruiting for their traffickers as well. So it is a big problem. Oftentimes they'll say, well, you don't have to have sex with other men if you'll bring in other women or other girls in. So there is a recruitment issue, and we have seen it a little bit in the schools as well. So that's why it's really important. And we have an educator training as well, and training for youth. So we've been doing a lot of going in and teaching the youth about those signs and also what to do and how to be aware of it.
Okay. Any other questions? That's great. Rhonda?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question. You mentioned about putting a block on your router. How can you find out more information about exactly how to do that?
That's a great question. You can go to Protect Young Minds website, and they have a whole bunch of information on how to protect that. Otherwise, Louise can send you my information. You can also go to lighthouseforlife.org, our website, and we have resources in there that'll give you more information. Or you can reach out to us, and we can get you connected to those that can help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Yeah, you're welcome.
This is great. Okay, well now we'll turn things over to Miss Lisa.
We'd like to thank Rosemary and Vicki for shining a light on 2 critical areas in our community. And in honor of Rosemary Bell and Greater Greenwood United Ministry, we would like to donate Song of Creation by Paul Goebel. I think Mary is pulling up something to show you for the library, for the children's. Want me to keep going?
It should be screen sharing, is it not? This is
Yes.
Mary.
Oh, I don't see it. Sorry. It's just me. Okay. And sorry, in honor of Vicky and our local rep, Kim, who wasn't able to join us, but in honor of both of those ladies who spoke to us on human trafficking, we would like to donate The Fabled Life of Aesop by Ian Lindler. And we thank you again, ladies.
Thank you.
Louise, please unmute. There you go. There you go.
We thank you once again for the information. Now we will have our committee reports, and I only have one person. Kathy, are you on? Catherine De Benedetto.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to all of you who are here. I am just going to say two really quick things about RSVPing. When you get your, I guess you probably can't see my phone. I tried to pull it up on my email, but when you get your invitations, your Evite, if you would please try and RSVP on the actual invitation that opens up. And you may need to scroll down, but there's actually a button that says reply. And you may have to sometimes push it twice, like it will bring up another screen that says how many are going. And you can say 1 or 2 if you're bringing a friend. But please pay special attention to your Evites. And it's very helpful for us when we find out how many people are going to be able to attend. And it will matter even more when we start getting together in person. So just want to encourage everyone, instead of sending separate emails or anything like that, you can RSVP right on the Evite. So thank you.
Great. Well, have you enjoyed yourself this evening, ladies? Thumbs up?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay. Much more is to come, and we thank you on behalf of the Program and Education Committee. For closing, I'd like to turn things over to Mary Woodowitz, and thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Mary Woodowitz. I co-chair GWC's advisory board. It was so good to be with everyone this evening in this shared Zoom room. I want to give our heartfelt thanks to Rosemary and Kim for being with us and sharing with us about the important work that you and your organizations are engaged in. We've learned more about some very hard situations and some very profound needs tonight, and we want to express our gratitude to you for the work that you're doing to relieve the pain and heal the wounds that you encounter in our community. We also want to thank you, Louise, and your Programs and Education Committee for coordinating these presentations and bringing this good content to us via Zoom tonight. We are always happy to welcome guests to each of our gatherings, whether they're virtual or eventually back in person, and we're very glad that several guests could join us tonight. GWC grows through membership of a broad range of women from many professional and personal sectors, and our membership is open to anyone, everyone. New members may join us at any time. Participating in our organization is truly rewarding as we seek to enrich and strengthen our community while being in the good company of other community-minded women. GWC has remained very active over these past months of keeping our safe distance. We've continued important community activity. We successfully conducted our 2020 grant cycle, which culminated in GWC grant awards to 10 organizations that totaled $74,000. None of this would have been possible or could have been accomplished without you, our members, giving support through your annual contributions and giving your service to our committees. We have plans in the works to continue to find ways to stay connected as long as this challenging time lasts for all of us. And we will keep you posted on our next quarterly meeting and other important upcoming events. Finally, and especially, please be on the lookout next month for an important email from GWC. It will contain the slate of GWC officers for the next 2 years. Your vote is needed to confirm their service. We must have a quorum of votes, so please take the time to give attention to that email and log on to cast your votes. There will be a few short survey questions as a part of that from our committees, and the email will include something very special, a link to a video of our 2020 GWC Year in Review. So something to look forward to on the near horizon. Many thanks again for attending this evening, and everyone take good care until we meet again. Take care. Have a good rest of the evening.